Co-creating with AI. This is a real skill because, co-creating is an attitude and it's a practice and it's an approach. It says, it's not just me, me, me. I'm co-creating. And just like today, I am co-creating this Real Skills workshop with Kathy Bartuli from the Intimacy Dojo and Thriving Now. And it's a delight to do it because
Yeah.
I'm recovering from having a cold for the last few days. And as I said, you know, um, if I was having to do this all by myself, quote, all by myself, I would have delayed the event. But because Kathy and I have a deep history of co-creating, we know how we are together. And I'm confident that I have somebody who can help me if I'm not feeling as clear. If something I say doesn't land, or whatever, that there's a relationship there. And AI for me, I'll just start with, is allowing me to have opportunities when I don't know how to say something, or I don't even know what an image for this workshop might look like. What possibilities are there? And, sometimes at 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, I don't. And so having a tool that can ease the way, that can work with me and do so in a way that I've learned its strengths and weaknesses now, and I'm watching for what's to come. And as Kathy and I were talking about this, there's some things that come up for people. They came up for me, they come up for people. Thank you for those of you that have already shared some of your fears and concerns and questions. And we're going to be touching on many of those today. And the chat is open for those that are live. If you're watching the replay, hi, you're welcome to ask follow-up questions and the like. Kathy and I have a deep engineering and technology background. We've been around on the planet for long enough to see things like going from manual typewriters to electric typewriters to correcting typewriters to word processors to personal computers in people's bedrooms to personal computers that are bigger, more capable than the biggest uh, mainframe computers that we carry around with us in our hip pocket. And AI is, to me, going to be as changing for humanity as ubiquitous internet has been, maybe even more so. And I feel like for those of us that are exploring freedom and freedom technologies, including EFT tapping, that this is the right time. It's the right time to start looking at this, understanding it, accepting it. And as you said, Kathy, it's not a genie that's going back in the bottle.
Not there's I work with a lot of people around AI and I'm like, well, maybe if we ignore it, none of us use it, they'll go away. And I'm like, too many people are using it. And it is really powerful. Just to give you a flow, because I know that some of you are at different levels than this, so you understand if this workshop is great for you to hang out with. We're going to start out talking about fears and worries about it. So that's something, if you don't get those out of the way, it's really hard to absorb information. The people that are scared don't absorb information really well. So we're going to talk about those. Then we're going to talk about some practical uses, and then we'll talk more about the nuances of using it. So no matter where you're at, this could probably be really useful to you. And one of the things that I think people worry about the most is it's going to take all the thinking out of the process. It's going to take over and our minds will just have to become jelly. And just like when we went I still remember trying to learn on a mechanical typewriter, and I'm a horrible speller. Like I'm the worst speller probably in this this half of the hemisphere. So mechanical typewriter, like where you had to put the little paper in and type it again to get rid of it. I would wear through the paper trying to correct it. It was awful. And then when we went for a little while, I had the ones that would go back a few words and erase them. That was a little better. But when we got to a computer and you could type it all out and then it started spell correcting, I was like, oh, and people were like, no one's going to be good spellers. Well, honestly, I was never going to be a good speller, whether this came into being or not. But it added a lot of ease and professionalism to my life. And I think that with AI, we're going to even see a bigger jump like that. But we still have to engage our hearts and our brains. So for the people that are like, oh, I don't even want to look at this because it's going to wipe out humanity or it's going to just take over, people are still looking for genuine, authentic heart. And they're looking for the brains that are just the decision making. Whether do I choose this? So generate 3 images or 4 images, and it generates these images that look similar to what you want. You're still choosing with your heart and your alignment to see what is true for your business or your expression. And that choice is always like, whenever we're doing something, what word do I use, this word or this word? If we're writing it ourselves, or do I correct this word or take this image or that image? We're still choosing how we want to express ourselves. We're just putting less labor in it. I don't have to use a horse and covered wagon to get to my house to Rick's anymore. It doesn't have to be, back in the day, it was if someone was going west, you were never seeing them again. It was done. It was like, bye, good luck in your life. But now Rick and I see each other, 2, 3, 4 times a year, and we see each other all the time on Zoom because there's airplanes, there's Zoom, there's FaceTime. All of that technology has made our lives easier. You get to have more ease in your expression, but you still have to. I think the people that are going to fail with AI are ones that are afraid and don't get over that fear or don't address the fear and start using it. And 2 are the people that kind of check out. Generate this, I'm just going to post it. People can tell. When the AI generated voiceovers on videos first came out, it was really fun. I was listening to a bunch of them. Now I'm just like, oh, I can tell. There's not the tone. And maybe they will be better, but it doesn't feel, my body doesn't drop in with the person and say, oh, I get this person. I want to spend more time with them or not. I can tell it's generated by a machine. There's not the heart there. So, I think that as people, right now it's kind of like the cotton candy of the world. Ooh, AI is so cool. Let's eat a lot of it. But after you eat a lot of cotton candy for a day or 2, you're kind of like, I want like some green beans and a salad. And like, I think people are going to crave the authentic even more. And if you're part of this group, you have a huge advantage because you constantly are working on finding your authentic and expressing that, clearing out the fears and the blocks and the masks that we wear. So you're going to have a huge advantage over a lot of people out there in the world. And I think that once you learn how to use the technology, release some of the fears and the worries, you'll be able to really step into it.
So fears. One of the fears I'm drawn, again, here's the very human thing right now. I'm using my intuition to feel like where to go with this. Okay. So I have signed my emails for 20 years now as emotional freedom coach. Okay. And because I've said, when people say, well, what do you do? I'm an emotional freedom coach. I am a clue. That's a clue. I am is a clue that whatever you say afterwards most likely lives pretty core to you. I'm a lawyer. I'm a doctor. I'm an emotional freedom coach. Before that, I was a technologist. I'm a technologist, and I would say things like that. I was a programmer, so for a while there, I'm a software developer. I'm a programmer. Well, when I started working with AI, there was an AI called Pi, and there still is pi.ai. I don't use it as much anymore, but I started having a conversation about something that was going on in my world. And dang, it was good. And after it was over, I said, wow, that was really helpful. And it was free. And yeah, I could do a little better if if it wasn't me, I could coach myself and if I was in a better place. And I started like, oh, this is really useful. This is really useful at 3:00 in the morning for getting some witnessing, for being able to say what's on your mind. including the profanity, including the things that are unkind, including the things that you don't really want to tell and process right now or ever with another human being. Or maybe you have to get it processed a little bit first before you can even bring it up in a coaching session. And notice I'm tapping. Now, this is an emotional technology. We have an energy system, the meridians that are outlined in Chinese medicine and have been used even before that. We tap these points as something emotional is coming up. And it's as simple as talking and tapping. So one thing that people sometimes do that I've told them is, hey, if you're working with AI and it's frustrating the snot out of you, tap while you do it. Just like you can tap while you're griping. So if you're not familiar with EFT tapping, we have a free guide, thrivingnow.com/tapping. But when I noticed that, hey, this is something that is letting me, who's pretty savvy with emotional skill, do something that there was nobody else available for me at that time of the middle of the night. And it was useful, and it felt like a dialogue. It felt like a co-creation. I could tell it, look, don't be so upbeat right now. I'm just not in that mood. Okay. I hear you. And there was no, sad face or, recorrection or something like that. It started adapting how it responded to me. I don't want strategies right now. I just want some reflection about what you hear me saying, etc. So notice that for me, if my identity is emotional freedom coach, that AI could feel like a threat to my primitive brain. And I am quite aware that of the billions of people on the planet with a desire for stronger emotional resilience and capacity to handle difficult situations, to heal trauma, to be more mindful and present, and to get past things that really are looping them around, that there's a new player on the scene. In fact, almost every one of the AIs you can have this kind of conversation with. And the tapping is, yeah, even though I thought I'd carved this out as something that was very human, right? And this can be for anything that you do, that you feel like, okay, yeah, there's a new player that's infringing on what I thought I was part of my identity. Even though this really matters to me.
Even though this really matters to me.
And I thought I had carved out this really useful skill.
And I thought I'd carved out this really useful skill.
That me as a human was really good at.
The human was really good at.
And no machine was going to take that from me.
And no machine was going to take that from me.
Times are changing.
Times are changing.
And I'm in the process of accepting that.
And I'm in the process of accepting that.
And adapting to it too.
And adapting to it too.
Top of the head. It's uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable.
Eyebrow. A part of me is asking if this is a threat.
A part of me is asking if this is a threat.
Side of the eye. Ooh. Depends on how I frame it.
It depends on how I frame it.
Under the eye. I can definitely frame it as a threat.
I can definitely frame it as a threat.
Under the nose. And that gets me all worked up.
And that gets me all worked up.
Chin, until I freeze and want to go away and do something else.
Until I freeze and want to go away and do something else.
Collarbone. I wonder if there's any opportunities here.
I wonder if there are any opportunities here.
If I was deeply accepting of this new player.
If I was deeply accepting of this new player.
And wanted to co-create with it.
I wanted to co-create with it.
what new opportunities might rise?
What new opportunities might arise? Oh, that felt good. I do think that I just want to emphasize something Rick said is that something new is often seen as a threat. Our brains are like, new is scary, run away. And I like to, one way I help myself ground is I remember when trains first came out in the 1800s, people were certain that if you went over 35 miles an hour, because that's about as, like the fastest horse wouldn't go more than 35 miles an hour, even for little spurts. They were convinced that if you went over 35 miles an hour for any sustained amount of time, your organs would disintegrate. And they were telling women that they shouldn't ride them, that their wombs wouldn't work right anymore. And they were telling everybody, don't get on these trains. They're dangerous. And it's really natural for humans to fear, or any animal, any being to fear that's new, it might be dangerous. And yet most of us don't even think about getting in a car and driving, 55, 60 miles an hour, 70 miles an hour down the road, right? Even though they had that really strong fear. People they were like, oh my God, this is the end of the world. We're going to destroy the universe with this. And I think enough people have played with AI to understand that it is a tool, and any tool can be used for good or evil. One of the things I remind people when I teach about this is that it learns from the questions we ask it. And so when we ask it lots of questions about creativity, consent, love, emotional freedom, we're having it think more about that. And the way I can emphasize this is when it was first learning, when they were first working with AI, and they were giving it certain assignments. They'd given it a bunch of information. They trained it, like, here's all the stuff to consume. And they said, please answer these questions. We're going to have some people test asking you a lot of questions. And people started asking it questions about Prussian, which is a language I don't think it's even spoken anymore. But people, for some reason, some people asked about Prussian, and it taught itself perfect Prussian. And the people that were organizing it are going, we didn't know it could do this. Oh my God. But it learns from the question, like, just like if what do you think about, you learn, get neural pathways, new insights on. So if someone was asking you all day long about your car, you're going to get better understanding your car and answering those questions. You're going to build more database around that. So it's learning from the kinds of questions we ask it and how we interact with it. So I want to be part of the good side that's helping it learn nice things, and not how to, so there's marketers who are out there. How do I manipulate people to buy my thing? That's not the kind of question I'm going to ask it. I'm going to say, I want it to be very heartfelt and heart-centered, and to be an invitation for the right people, and be very clear. So when we're in the mix, actively participating, we're actually creating something that's better. Does that make any sense to folks? That helps me feel better because at first I'm like, I'm not really sure about this, but our questions and our interaction with it are actually creating something different than if we didn't interact.
And it's going to become even more refined that way. And this is something that I could talk about for years, and I'm going to be. But for example, I've taught different AIs who I am by taking things that I've written. And I've asked it, well, how would you describe me? And it's stunningly useful. Like, what do I value in the way that I communicate and things like that? And it allows you to tune it. And you'll be able to do that as a tool. Your AI, we're not there yet, but there will be an AI that really is your advocate, that can say, hey, I'm noticing that, you kind of point, this ad gives me a weird feeling. Like, I'm strangely interested in it, but there's something weird going on here. And it goes out and discovers all the side comments and things that it would take you a long time to recognize that and to extract that information. And that's part of why this is not going back in the bottle. A lot of people are concerned about it taking people's jobs. And I'd like to do a tapping around that, because there's a frame of reference that we are our jobs. And I will tell you that that's a result of industrial and survival thinking, right? Um, a job right now, to me, another frame of reference is we have jobs still because we haven't figured out how to not have jobs, right? um, it costs me $500 a month to heat my house uh, in this cold weather, and almost. And that's the money that I earn from doing this work helps make that happen. Um, if at some point in the future that is not necessary, then maybe, what is a job? But right now we're in this zone where money is a necessity. It's like oxygen for humans. It's part of our survival structure. Money has become part of our survival structure, whereas you go back 100,000 years, they didn't have money as a structure. And they had, how much meat do you have? Do you have furs? I have fish hooks that I crafted. And we exchanged value in a different way. So what do you do if you're a lawyer? I heard two very successful humans. They had a 3-hour podcast yesterday. It's the first 3-hour podcast I've ever listened to. It was a video podcast, like a Real Skills Workshop, but 3 hours long. But they were talking back and forth. And one of the people said, now, why did I start with it? Because I clicked a little button. I use a tool to summarize a YouTube video and give me the high points. And I was like, I have never thought of that. That's interesting. And it's playing in the background. And then I said, well, give me the time breakdown. Because sometimes I just jump to a point and I had the AI give me the time breakdown. And I'm like, that's interesting. And I ended up preparing myself. The AI helped prepare myself that this looked like it had significant value to me. And that's what they said, my side point, brain pause. Their point was, one of them is a very successful business person. And they said they have far fewer lawyers working for them than they did a year ago. That the documents that they need, AI can produce in minutes and get through all the revisions that it would take a back and forth with a team of lawyers, many thousands of dollars. They do the back and forth with the AI that's tuned to their business, and they get the legal documents which serve them for $20 a month. Now, that first tapping I did, if I'm a lawyer, it's not that there isn't a use for the real skills of being a lawyer, but just like my dad had a secretary that typed at 180 words per minute with almost perfect accuracy. And she was the most important person in his law practice, because when they had 30 minutes to retype a 30-page agreement to reflect the new changes, he could write out what the changes were and she could make the changes. She was just an astounding person. And I remember when my dad in the early periods of word processing spent $26,000 for a word processor for her. She was still the most amazing person in the office, but she was freed from having to ever again retype 30 pages when really all she would need to redo is 7 paragraphs across those 30 pages. That, yes, changed the layout and everything else.
Well, and I think
It
also,
was greatly relieved.
yeah, I've worked with lawyers a few times, and it was like, we were so caught up in like search these 360 documents to find any reference to this, which AI could do very quickly, versus there wasn't a lot of time to talk and support. Like I wanted more emotional support. I wanted to be like, I wanted to understand the
Strategies.
process that was going on. And there wasn't the room or the the bandwidth to do that. I think that the focus may shift a little bit. That doesn't mean it's gonna the position and the idea of the role is gonna go away.
Mhm.
AI can hallucinate. That's something to pay attention to. It'll be very convinced it's right, but it's wrong occasionally. It's getting better at that. But still, I'm not going to send in legal documents that haven't had someone who knows what they're doing review them, or me spend the extra 20 hours of like trying to translate it. And I want someone who knows how to talk to the court system and knows the like, oh, if we go to go this path, it's going to be this way, and if you go to this path, it's going to be a lot easier. And like there's still a lot of knowledge and skill, practical skill that AI is not going to give, but we can definitely use it as a tool to get there.
Mhm. Right. And someone said they feel scared that they won't be able to learn how to use it.
The cool thing is it will teach you.
It will teach you. So yeah, you can, let's tap on the fear first.
Let's do it.
Even though this is new,
Even though this is new,
and I'm afraid I won't be able to learn it.
and I'm afraid I won't be able to learn it.
Here I am on a Zoom call
Here I am on a Zoom call,
or watching a video on a computer.
watching a video on a computer.
And 20 years ago, people weren't sure were going to be able to learn that either.
And 20 years ago, people weren't sure they were going to be able to learn that either.
Top of the head. Oh, Zoom could never be useful.
Zoom could never be useful.
Eyebrow. It just saves me from having to get on a horse,
It just saves me from getting on a horse
side of the eye, and go to the meeting hall,
and going to the meeting hall,
under the eye, wherever it is.
wherever it is, and whatever kind of weather,
Yeah. To attend a meeting.
to attend a meeting.
Yeah. And I can even drop off anytime.
And I can even drop off anytime.
Although it's harder when you're in person.
It's harder when you're in person, and that horse does not record the meeting for you.
But am I going to be able to learn it?
And am I going to be able to learn?
Happy head. I'm letting go of my resistance to learning it
I'm letting go of my resistance to learning it.
because I've learned a lot in my life.
I have learned a lot in my life. I would say that my experience when I first started, Rick first kind of got me into it when he was able to play with it for a little while, and I was kind of resistant and worried about some of the ethics of it. And he had me try it. Back then, you kind of had to know how to ask it to do stuff. But now you can say, hey, I want to do XYZ. I have, please tell me how to ask you for this. What kind of or please ask me questions that will help you do it in the right tone. And it will ask you the questions and you can answer them. And then it might even ask you a few more, and then it just does the thing. And then you can say, it's not quite right. Please redo it in, make it more conversational, or you can just redo it multiple times. And the analogy Rick and I use is if you hired a virtual assistant or an assistant, when they first come on, they don't necessarily know your style. It can be kind of frustrating because you kind of have to like, oh, that's not where I file these things, and I would never use that phrase, and that's not a concept we ever advocate. You teach them, but they get to know you over time, and you still have to remind them every once in a while. But AI doesn't really, it's pretty good about remembering what you tell it. You still have to, sometimes it'll blip, but it mostly will do what you ask it to. And you can just say, hey, I don't know how to do this. Can you tell me what are the first 3 steps I need to take, or give me a list of the steps and then walk me through them, and it will. So even if you don't know how, if you get over your fear and start playing with it and giving it feedback, just like a virtual assistant, you have to say, oh, that was great. I love this. Oh, this is not what I would ever do. Yeah, that's okay. Like giving it feedback as you go, being thankful. I think we want to teach it to be kind. So I always say, please, thank you, appreciate the effort, but that's not anywhere. Like, can we redo this? Um, I just treating it nicely and interacting with it. I even encourage people that are nervous around it. You can say, can I give you a name? And it will say, you don't need to, but you can. And you can say, well, I'd like to give you a name so I feel more comfortable. And then you can say, hey, I call mine Charles, because I have he's passed away now, but my dear uncle, my great uncle, was warm, loving, put so much effort into things. And he was occasionally very, very wrong about things and wouldn't see it. So when I call him Charles, I'm like reminding myself that this is doing its best, but I should actually like look up and make sure some of the facts are correct, because he would be so convinced. So you can give it a name and you can actually ask it to help you. Like, please break down the next 3 steps I need to take or whatever. So if you're nervous about that, just you can relax a little bit about that.
Yeah. You if you go to chat.com, that's ChatGPT. Go to thrivingnow.com/perplexity. That's one that I use all the time to replace. It started using it to replace Zoom. I have a pro plan, but the free plan is there too.
The pro plans are $20 a month. They're not a lot, but when I'm working with people teaching them on AI, I'm like, start with the free one. If you start running out of like they'll let you have access to almost all the same stuff, but they will limit the number of requests, prompts, or questions you can give it. So if you start running out, then worry about the $20 a month. It's not a lot of money, but it's still money out of your pocket.
It is. And there are many other free options out there. X has Grok, Grok. So I believe it's grok.x.com. There's also a Grok, Grok, which is super fast. And it's free right now too. There are many others. But if you're afraid of getting started, you can start with just something that you're curious about. And I believe that part of our co-creating with AI energy, if you come away with, hey, this is becoming ubiquitously available. Like these websites, although there are some country limitations just because of different regulations within different zones, there are certain things that are not available in the European Union that are available in other countries. For example, other countries are still blocked, like North Korea and the like. But if it's becoming available and you start saying, well, what are some easy ways that it might be interesting to me?
And I really recommend, I think we've given you too many options. When somebody's nervous about something, if you're new to this, like people that have been playing around, it's great to have the options. If you're brand new, I'm going to say go to ChatGPT. They're very ethical, they're easy. So ChatGPT is a baseline one that if you learn that, you can copy and paste anywhere. But I think when you're new and you're nervous, if someone gives you 2 choices, you have to make a decision when you're scared and you don't do it. So I'm going to recommend ChatGPT as a starting place. They're one of the more ethical companies. You own the output that you get. They don't own it. You don't have to worry about copy, who's going to say that it's theirs. And it's a very friendly one, especially if you interact in a friendly way with it. And it's a free one you can have for free and then upgrade to $20 if you want. I'm not sure what you need to say about that. Ask
Yeah.
yet. So we could just say, hey, what's going on, dude?
Yeah.
Why would you do this?
So, I think that I'm feeling drawn to talk about how we co-create with AI to make things a little easier, or is there something else that you want to?
I'd like to just hit on 2 points really quickly, because I think if they're not addressed, it just kind of floats in the ether. There's a lot of people worried about the ethics of using AI and a couple different factors. One is are they stealing information from other people? Are we taking jobs from other people? And then the other hand, is it environmentally friendly? Like, is it so those are 2 big ones that I hear a lot. So one, it's using things that are out there in the like it's in the I call it the collective conscious. It's in the internet. It knows anything that's been published. Do not give it your driver's license. Do not give it your social security number or your credit card numbers. You don't need that in the collective consciousness. What you put in there it starts to getting added to its brain power a little bit. But one thing I do is put it through a plagiarism checker before I use it. So it is possible that just like any of us, like we've all learned, and I imagine if you're here, you're kind of a geek and you study this stuff a lot, you might inadvertently quote someone else. You might use words someone else used without realizing it, and not attribute it to them. Not because it was malicious, just because your brain had stored that, the neural pathway spit it out, and there it is. So I recommend that I use Grammarly.com is one. Google has a plagiarism checker. Run your stuff. It only takes a second. Copy and paste. Look for any plagiarism, because then you're not worried about stealing other people's content. It is pulling from that collective consciousness, but we are as well when we do this. So I don't feel like there's a big ethical dilemma there. In terms of saving people's jobs, me not using ChatGPT or AI is not going to save anyone's job. This is, again, the genie's out of the bottle. Human beings and any living being needs to pivot. Just like plants will move towards the sun, we have to move toward our jobs are changing. Like just the COVID happened and we had to work online and now they're trying to make us go back to the work. There's flow on this. So, in terms of ethics, I can make sure I'm not stealing content and I can share information on how to pivot with people and help them get over their fears of pivoting. So they're willing and able to adjust. But I can't put the genie back in the bottle. Me abdicating from using it is not going to, any of us, like the flow is too big now. We can't put it back. And then in terms of environmental impact, there is an environmental impact. Mostly when it's trained is the biggest impact. It uses a lot of energy. It uses water. So those things happen. Once it's gotten trained, it uses less. And people are going to train it whether we use it or not. And it's also getting better and better. So like NVIDIA that makes a lot of the chips people use, the efficiency is getting better and better. Just like when we first do anything, we're not so efficient. So it does have an environmental impact, and it's going to be happening whether we participate or not. Us like saying, no, I'm not going to do this to protect the environment. That same training is happening whether we're logging in or not. And when we do ask it questions, it does use some power. For every question we ask, it's about what used to be an hour. Now it's like a half an hour's use of a laptop, energy-wise. However, I know I can use ChatGPT well, and I can save myself 20 hours on a computer if I ask a few good questions. So it's trading off and it's getting more efficient the more we use it. It's using less power as we go. So I just wanted to throw those out there before we went to the practical uses, because I think that if we have those fears or resistances in our heads, it slows us down.
Someone said, and this goes to, I think, the emotional freedom side. Word is that a lot of kids use it to write their papers in college, also high school and other places, but under the impression that people use it just to be lazy and or cheat. And yes, that is true. I'm in college. I'm afraid to go that route, and I don't get how it could help me study. Any thoughts on how?
Well, helps so much with studying.
Okay, so there are people that outsource all their writing. There are websites you can go to and say, this is my assignment, and you can hire somebody to do that. Maybe they're in another country or something else, and put your name on it and present it. There are schools that say absolutely no AI. I would never spend money at going to a school at this point that says absolutely no AI. There are schools that say, I expect you to use AI to help you with your learning. And just like we use, where's the line? And I think that,
I'm sorry, there's schools that say no computers at all either. They're like, no computers. But then people come out and they don't know how to actually interact with the world. So I just wanted to add that in there.
So how can I use something to learn? So I homeschool my two kids here, and the older one, um, we use a product called Mia Academy, and he loves it mostly. Um, but the multiple choice tests that it does often ask him to memorize, like, which amendment did this, and they'll list 4 questions, and I'm like, buddy, it would take me many hours to remember and memorize which amendment is which. And he doesn't have that brain either. And so what we do is we use ChatGPT, we snapshot the thing and we ask it to answer the question and also explain where we add a follow-up question. Answer this, and why was that important at that time in history? So what are we doing? Are we cheating the exam? Yes, but I don't care. Now, if you're in school and your purpose is to get through it, even if you have to cheat, that's your integrity. If you see other people cheating and that's just not you, it's your integrity. Don't use it during the exam. I think that where emotional freedom is for me is that I don't want to be in situations where the only way to get through it is to have to cheat the system.
No, I think of it like
The people that don't, yeah,
when it's hard work.
but I will tell you, if I was in college and I suffered through a class on Madame Bovary, it was completely opaque to me. I got a C minus minus only by crying to the professor. Okay. I spent 36 hours trying to write the paper that legitimately completely missed the point. I would sit in class with 6 coffees to try to make it through the boredom and suffering. I was an electrical engineer and computer scientist, but this was a required class for me. Now, AI could have said, hey, go out and find me a bootleg copy of Madame Bovary somewhere out there in the world, or I'll even scan that little thing in. And I want you to go, like, this chapter, what in the world is happening? Because the Cliff Notes didn't help. I needed something that would go back and forth and back and forth. And I say, here's this question. I don't even have a clue how to answer it. It could have actually been like a tutor that would help me with that. And so those are ways that I'm using it with my boy. I will do a quiz together, and he'll not know the answer. I said, well, what's your guess? And I said, oh, well, this is my guess. And then maybe we'll both be wrong. And we'll ask AI, hey, here's the question. It's just a keystroke, and explain why this and this are wrong and this is right. And it's been exceptionally useful as a tool for learning in that context.
You can also, if you have certain contexts, like you're an electrical engineer at that time, you were like your computer scientist, you could have said, explain this in terms that an engineer would understand. Or explain this in terms of an artist, like someone who's very artistic and visual. It can actually interpret and put analogies that match your style. And if you say, oh, that doesn't work, try again, it tries again. You're like, oh, this is closer, but I still don't quite get it. And then you could say, is this what I'm supposed to be getting from it? It can feed back. And there's a lot of, you can ask it, like, you have a new topic you need to learn. I've had new topics at work. They're just throwing things at me. We need this by tomorrow. And I'm like, I've never done this before. And especially if you can't do it if it's proprietary to your work, but I can come home and go, or on my phone, I go, teach me the top 3 points that I need to know about this to have like an overview of this topic. Oh, okay. Now I at least have an idea what the topic is. What do I need to know know 80% of what the average person knows about this or whatever? There's ways to kind of tune in and filter so that you're not, a lot of the work I do is as an engineer, people like to write in big words to make themselves feel important and look important. And so it's not easy. It doesn't sink in easily. But if I have a baseline, then I can immediately, oh, this file's here, this file's here. So there's so many things you can do with it. There are people that will tune out for marketing as well. I teach marketing AI for marketing. People will plug in stuff and they'll just take it and plop it on a page. There's no engagement, there's no checking. And you do have to check it. You have to say, oh, does this align with me? And I think there was a question someone posted before the call saying, is I'm a marketing person. How is this going to go away? Well, I can go on AI and quickly say, I need a marketing plan. It will tell me. And I'll say, I can make 30 Instagram reels in 5 minutes. But it's painful for me to go back through that content to find out if it's aligned for me because it's about me. It's very personal. And it's like, I would kill to have somebody that would go through it and go, I know you really well. I'm going to go through this and filter out the ones that we shouldn't use. And I'm going to help you. I'm going to tune in the ones that should be tuned and we're going to be good to go. So again, it's a pivot, like the plant, that the sunshine moved a little bit, the leaves will rotate. You may have to rotate a little bit to get to the, it doesn't mean that the sunshine has gone away. It's just shifted. And we just have to I was pointed here, but maybe I can rotate here. And I actually get to dig into the juicy part of it and get really authentic with people. That's much more fun than typing out raw data.
Yeah, I don't think that AI's primary role is going to be just text generation in a random way for mass consumption. But there's someone doing work called Deep Writer.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say that you were considering developing a business around a particular need, that you wanted to develop software as a service for barbershops. Okay. And he's developing a way to prompt that and have it produce a 120-page report, for example, that's for you around your idea and the issues and the other opportunities. And it can also, so I think we are moving toward, and this is the way I use it, is a way of tapping into that collective consciousness in ways that are useful to you. And this is for thriving. I don't, if I'm learning something new because of my nature as a student teacher, the dynamic of learning something new isn't just passively listening to something. I want to be able to say, wait a minute, could you explain what that means? So right now, if I'm looking at X and somebody's talking about AI, and I'm like, I have no idea what those acronyms are, or how does this apply for somebody who's doing work for this? I can actually click a button and their AI will explain not only what I'm pointing at, but the rest of the thread as well. And I can ask follow-up questions. How does that change how we engage together? No, I don't like the people that are using an AI bot to post some reply that doesn't add value. But you know what? We're going to be able to filter out those things ourselves anyway as we go forward. And I that's why I feel like for those of us that want emotional freedom, we're going to take a break here in a minute. But before we come back and go into a little bit more of the examples, but also what's how we can really be actively co-creating our thriving life using AI. I've spent 30 years developing my spiritual dialogue. And, I learned that if I meditate for 20 minutes and I ask a question and I take a powerful pause, we call it, that I can get feedback. And it feels to me like I'm tapping into the consciousness. And sometimes it's just so surprising. And that there are aspects of it that I know that Rick, whoever that dude is, probably wouldn't have thought of in exactly that way. It's a bit like prompting the universe and getting an answer back. And this is an experience that many thousands of people have had, millions of people probably have had. When you look at artists and they say, the muse was with me, there's that sense of being connected to more of the consciousness.
Yeah.
AI makes it possible for me to take someone who hasn't taken that journey and say, this thing we call prompting, the universe will respond to your prompts, and it will start adapting and correcting and adjusting to your feedback. As you get contrast, it'll give you something different. And to me, that's an extraordinarily exciting thing, to be able to sit with my boy and ask those questions of a tool that imperfectly reflects a lot of the way that I like to model my own life, and that I've felt spirit making itself available to me in the guidance and other things. And so the learning how to prompt and how to co-create from the spiritual level, it puts you in touch with the connected energy of life, the intelligence. People talk about it's matter and empty space. It's, to me, matter and intelligence. So AI for me is augmented intelligence, however you tap into it. And if you get good at prompting, if you get good at prompting with clarity, you'll also notice that that works better with friends and others. You start getting used to, hey, I can ask for what I want, and I may not get what I want back. I may ask for it to be tweaked, but more and more we can have the experience. And I believe that when we get really good at that, and the acceptance of, there's something in our primitive brain. I was reading a study on it the other day, where people are very uncomfortable with things that have higher intelligence than they are. And we tend to look down on things that have less intelligence. So if you're an artist that can draw something beautifully, the tendency would be like, oh, I'm up here and I look down on AI because it put, 8 talons, or,
the wrong number of fingers on
first thing you did when you had a human in an AI picture was to count the fingers. And it's surprisingly hard to get 5 fingers on each hand and 5 toes. But then there's also the, wow, I never could have painted that. Wow, I never could have drawn that. Emotional freedom says, yeah, there's this beautiful ecosystem of gifts that we have as humans, and that we have as our tools, and we have as our tool users. And wow, if we're co-creating, instead of rather to rise up into the stratosphere, if we're co-creating, what does that mean for us? What does it mean? I can accept more readily that a tool can do this really well and not do that very well. And my 4-year-old can do this really well, and she's still trying to figure out this whole other thing. And me too. I might be definitely more, accepting. The core to EFT is accepting of where we are, and as Kathy said, engaging with it in a way that reinforces what we want more of in the world. And I want more of the Freedom Kin involved in using these tools to support one another, to support ourselves, and to co-create this world that really does have an opportunity to be more thriving, but it's not certainly guaranteed.
When you come back, we're going to show you some really cool things you can do with it and help you work through some other blocks. And yeah, should we give them a break?
Yep,
Let the
7 minutes.
process kick in. You can ask questions while you're gone.
Welcome back. On the break, someone wrote in the chat, we used to reach out to our parents and elders for answers. AI could be more intelligent for sure, but are we giving up on our humanity?
Mm.
And
I guess I think of it as reaching through a lot of our elders, because a lot of the information that's on the internet, like it's looking through, you can see all the internet from the beginning of time, from the internet, but it's also people have scanned in a lot of stuff from before then, documented things from older times. And if I reach out to, say, my mother's an elder in my family, she can give me some information, but she also has a somewhat more narrow view than I would like to search from. And I can ask AI to look at elders from across different demographic and pull in information. I don't have to, it's still looking through humanity. It's not coming up with its own ideas. It's looking through what is out there. So it's again, the collective consciousness of humanity, and it's pulling that forward. And nobody has to use it. And you don't have to, even if you ask it a question, you don't have to take its advice. Sometimes the mirror of something is like, oh, not that, is as useful for me as good information. Again, we still have to engage our hearts and our brains when we're using it. It's not just blindly copy and pasting. It's like, does this work for me? Does this resonate for me? So I don't think we're actually giving up on our humanity. I wanted to share a couple really things that I found very practically useful on this. I know that we're here about creativity and trying to use it more, but if I can free up other time that would normally give me a hassle, that gives me more time to decide what I want to do with my energy. So a couple of things that I found really useful recently is, one, when Rick and his family was here, I have my car, one of the rearview windows got the tint peeled off. And I didn't want to retint my whole window. And I was also like wanting to fix it relatively quickly because it wasn't a big deal. But when I backed up, I couldn't see out of that window very well. So it was kind of a safety hazard. And when I went to Yelp and Google, I was like hundreds of like window tinting. I was just like totally overwhelmed. So I went to ChatGPT and I said, please find some top rated window tinting places within 3 miles of me that have good reviews and that will do single windows. And it came up with a list of 5. And the first one I called, they didn't answer. The second one I called, he said, yeah, can you, I can do it today if you want if you can be here in 20 minutes, or we can schedule something and it'll be $20. And I was like, oh my God. And I'm like, okay. And I went and it was done. I handed my $20 and just drove away. And I'm like, 15 minutes later, I'm like, oh my God, I could have easily spent hours trying, just in that kind of decision fatigue of like, how do I choose, versus asking it to pull out some suggestions for me. And the other thing is, last night I just came back from this very intense 8-day deep dive. It was amazing, but my brain is a little bit chewed up, and emotionally I wanted something that was entertaining and fun and thoughtful, but not too stupid and definitely not scary. So I went to ChatGPT, and you can do any, most of the ones you can talk to. And on your phone, if you have your account in ChatGPT on your phone, you can just talk to it. So I was like, I can't find Easy A, which is a show I like, or Mean Girls playing on Netflix right now, but I want something in that genre that's like light and easy and fun and good. Ends up ultimate very hopeful and happy and nothing scary. And it has to be streaming on Netflix because I didn't want to go hunting through the 15 different streaming apps that I still pay for every month. And it came up with a few. And the first time I went, oh, I've seen all those. Please try again. And then the second time, like, oh, some of them look a little scary. Please filter. And then it came up with something I never heard of. And I said, please describe this movie. And it came up with the synopsis. And this is definitely not scary. And it was lovely. I was like, it wasn't anything I would have watched on my own or found on my own. So I did end up asking 3 different questions. But now it knows me. If I go back into that same thread, I can say, hey, please find some more along these lines, and it will have that data that, it knows what it already answered. So those are different ways. Like, I don't know about you, but sometimes when I'm looking for something, I'll spend hours just flipping through and just like not getting the fulfillment I need. And it takes bandwidth of time. So like those are little ways you can use it to help you. Like, I needed a recipe the other day for something that I didn't have one of the ingredients. I said, here's, I want to make this recipe. I have these ingredients. I don't have this. And it came up with this brilliant alternative that tasted lovely. So we only have, so our CPUs in our brains get worn out. They get tired of making decisions and thinking. We can use AI to narrow our choices or give us options that we wouldn't think of normally. And so that does give you more room for creativity, because you haven't tired yourself out on like finding a window tinting thing that took you half the day and then trying to make an appointment. Like, oh, it's already done. I checked that off my list. The next time Rick and the kids come, it's all, the car's ready to go. So, I just wanted to share those things because I think a lot of people think it has to be this big task you ask it to do. And it can be really narrow little things that can like just, oh, that's done. It's off my list.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Using an AI to, especially ones, if you're used to, mute her for a second. If you're used to Alexa, right? You might have noticed that she's not, willing. Like, I'll say good night to her, and she's very willing to tell each of my smart lights, 24 of them throughout the house, turn off if you're already on, turns off all the lights, sets the speed on the different devices for the filtering and other things, turns on the dehumidifier if needed. It's very capable of doing that. But once you start looking at the current generations, Siri and Alexa and others, really you start seeing, wow, this is like dial-up modems, if you're old enough to remember those, to fiber optic level. We've crossed a chasm here in capability, and that is changing about every 3 months. So even if you looked before, a simple way that people can start co-creating is, like Kathy said, if you're going to search for something, you can try ChatGPT, but also Perplexity is my favorite for searching. It even tells you what it heard, like how it's doing its search. It breaks it down, which is really useful. And I don't use Google anymore. In terms of search, Google has deteriorated dramatically during this time period.
Well, partly, but it incorporated, just to give people a little bit of background, it's incorporating its AI, but it fed its AI, it trained its AI on Reddit and other things without teaching it about sarcasm and stupid people that post things that are inaccurate. So really just, they're trying to train it better, but like when you give it a really bad diet to begin with, it's like trying to fix it I don't use it.
I'm just talking about google.com, the way that we've been searching since the beginning of.
Still incorporate their AI into it.
They've started to do that, and Google has some amazing AI tools as well, that are getting better, because their first iterations there were terrible. But if you're used to doing a Google search for something or the like, trying it out on ChatGPT, and if you're an explorer like I am, go to perplexity.com and ask the same question and have it do a search for you. I had to choose replacement washer and dryer that have to fit into a closet in the upstairs of my house that I rent. So my role as a steward of this property is to recommend to the owners something that's going to work, that we want to live with. It is astronomically difficult with the space involved. The fact that, the last time they did this, they got a dryer door that couldn't open all the way because it came down like a hamper open. And so we needed a dryer door that would open on one side or the other. we would need the washing machine to open the other way. By the way, they do not make front-loading washers of any decent quality that you can switch the way the door opens. That would work. Perplexity helped me explore that and discover it. I had this fantasy that the new heat pump washer dryer single units, we just throw something in and come back and it'd be dry. And I said, what are people saying about any of these three? And what would probably drive us crazy as a family of four? And Perplexity came back and said, you would probably, I'm going to say, suffer the 3-hour dry time on a full load of family clothes because it's very efficient, but it doesn't use much electricity, but it takes 3 hours to dry a full load of kids' clothes. That really helped. And so that's one of the things I use. I use Perplexity, the one subscription. And I hear you, Kathy. If you're only going to do one thing, ChatGPT is the starting point. But Perplexity also has ethical standards, and you can choose the model that you use, so you can actually explore the different personalities, because ChatGPT has its personality. Perplexity I use to try out different ones. And for me, the replacement of having to Google and go down through 100 different options. I use it to solve technical problems. I use it to explore questions about how to solve a problem in my business. There was an issue on my phone. What was it? I couldn't find where they moved the option to block unknown numbers, because I had some service people coming, and if I block their number, they might not come. And I couldn't remember where to turn it off. I asked the Siri numbskull, sorry, I can't help you with that. What do you mean?
You're making my
Perplexity, and Perplexity went out and found the information and gave me step-by-step instructions. Now, I used to be the tech person in my family. I assure you that before there were Google searches, there were Rick calls, right? So Google search replaced a lot of Rick calls. And what's really cool here is that AI is replacing a lot of things that are not my sweet spot. My sweet spot. I had somebody email me the other day and said, I'm just so pissed off about this situation. I don't even know how to get what I want. And I said, okay, say that right into to the AI. In fact, write a draft as pissed off and just say at the end of it, please make this assertive and professional so that I get this at the end. And they wrote back and said, wow, I didn't think it would work that well. I have ranted about a situation. Spectrum was supposed to give us automatic credits for the time after Helene that it was out, and their CEO even sent an email. They didn't. And when I tried to communicate with their customer service was not going for it. So I ranted into an AI exactly how I felt about it and what needed to happen and blah, blah, blah. And I sent that off to them. And I got a credit. It wasn't the credit that I wanted, but I got a $35 credit. Yeah, Spectrum. It's those types of things where, as an emotional freedom coach, if I was coaching myself, we would have tapped, which I was doing, on how upset I was. But what's interesting is that the AI could hear all of that and not dysregulate. It could not get wrapped up in how unfair it is and everything else. It heard, oh, you want to communicate assertively, get this, and you want to do it in a way that doesn't make you sound like a jerk, right?
Yeah.
Because I was sounding like a jerk, but completely lost hinges, kind of thing. I don't- right? And
Just been through so
I've had people say, I have this medical situation. I'm concerned that the doctors are going to fire me, and that would not be good. How could I say this? Now, I could help craft that. What was interesting is by using AI, they came up with a draft that they liked. And when we engaged around it the next time, um, it was like, yeah, and it seems like it's missing this. Oh, yeah. So we as humans, we're not taking humans out of the picture, or we don't have to. We can when that's really helpful, is to not have to deal with a human that might be attached to something. Um, when I'm writing something and I like it, I say, hey, tell me how this really fits what I'm trying to communicate. And it'll give me the positive feedback. And I'll say, give me 3 improvements that I might make. And it'll give me the improvements, but it doesn't care. It hasn't done labor that it's attached to. And in that case, I can look at the improvements and say, nah, I don't think that would help. If somebody said that to me, I would have to just like process that energy. Okay, my offering wasn't useful to you. But what's cool about it is that by doing that, it does make me more resilient to being told, hey, well, that just really doesn't work for me. Isn't that interesting?
yeah.
I've
Just,
I've noticed a difference because that's the way that I prompt and interact with AI very directly or fuzzily, that it makes me a better partner because I'm more used to the non emotional reaction. I can be more in response. Oh, well, that helps me know. That helps me navigate.
I also used it. I had a friend who didn't want to go to a lawyer. Her landlord, she had signed a lease, and then that room did not match what the agreement was. And the guy was just trying to keep her deposit. He was just being a jerk about it. And she knew it wasn't worth the money to go to a lawyer, but we just said, you tell ChatGPT or Perplexity, tell it what role you want it to take. That will really help it. So we said, please take the role of a legal expert with a lot of expertise in dealing with landlords or rentals. And please, we want to request this deposit return because the room didn't match what the statement was. And please make it legal, professional, but firm. And we actually rewrote it twice. We said, that's a little too legalese or a little too aggressive. But we changed a couple things very minorly, and she sent it off and she got the money back because it sounded like it was coming from a lawyer and he didn't want to mess with lawyers. But she would have just lost that money otherwise because it would cost more to go to a lawyer than to get them. But, if you have a friendly lawyer who's going to type it out for you, like he was like, oh, here's your, we're done. Here's your money back. So it doesn't always work that way. But I think if you tell it what expertise you want it to have, that really helps. Just like if you want the context, just like if I came up to you and started asking you, please write a paper based on this and this, you're like, where am I coming from? But if I came up to you and I said, I need you to be a really heartfelt coach, and I want you to be like with professional, understanding, a lot of experience. Now you know how to tune to it. So you have to give it the information, or just ask it to rewrite as it goes. It will do that. But I think always telling it what expertise we want it to come from. You can also tell it to write in the tone of different people. So I've asked it to rewrite an article, or we wrote one on ethics around AI. And we said, I love Ted Lasso with a passion. That's like, I watched the shows like over and over. I said, please write it in the style of Ted Lasso. And it, fabulous job. And I wanted to do that because I think a lot of people were scared about even looking at the ethics. But if you make it kind of funny and some silly analogies about more scared than a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs, like, you can ask it for a tone. You want to give it that information. And I'll say sometimes say, please be conversational. And it'll be like, hey, dude, how are you doing? I'm like, not beach boy, beach bum conversational, professional conversational, or friendly. Or so you can give it what you want it to know or what perspective it's coming to it from. You can ask it for the tone. One of the things I love is say, please write this in. If it's something I'm brand new to or I'm having mental blocks, it was like, write it something that a sixth grader would understand. And then I can ask it for more details later, but I need to get the very basics into my brain if I'm resistant. Or write this at like a college level. You can tell it those kinds of things, and you're giving it information on how to generate something that you can use, more quickly than having to go back and forth with it.
Some of the things that this is making possible, we only have about 5 minutes, but someone asked, can you have it write a letter in a different language? AI's understanding of language and how to say one thing versus another in different languages has taken 100x improvement in this last 2 to 3 years. So yeah, it's a awareness of context and meaning is really improving, and it's going to continue. It would be possible for me right now to take this workshop and have a lip synced version in Croatian with Kathy and I, our vocal tone and other things in Croatian. I don't have a big market in Croatian. We have one person on here I know that speaks, but it is possible for people to share wisdom and for wisdom from other cultures to make it from their libraries into our forms. And it's a fascinating time to start feeling and knowing that where it used to be that you needed a very skillful simultaneous translator to stand between you and someone you wanted to co-create with. And that person was a rare, rare person on the planet that could simultaneously translate for you. Whereas right now, it's possible for an AI to be translating the closed captions into Chinese of what Kathy and I are saying, or Korean, or Spanish, or whatever.
And I do encourage you to notice that there's some words that are hard to translate. So if I was posting anything that was AI translated, I would put an asterisk near the top and say, hey, this is translated by AI, and I don't speak Chinese well enough or Croatian well enough to proof it. Please let me know if something seems out of place, because, like there's some words that can have multiple meanings, or like we want to make sure I just like to warn people, hey, this was AI generated and a human did not verify this.
Someone said, could we have another workshop and go even deeper? What I'd like is go to the replay page and give us some ideas. What would you like to build where this co-creative tool set will be helpful to you for your thriving, for your service in the world, for the expression of your creativity, to cultivate your own circles and connections, to give you more time for the human artistry part of it and less time having to figure out which washer and dryer. And we love the washer and dryers, that we have. I even asked it, I said, why do I keep being attracted to LG instead of Samsung? And it said, well, LG's brand is around simple and useful, and Samsung is more like the woo, yee, go for it kind of thing.
Like,
that's me. So we got an LG washer and dryer here. I would love to know what it is that you'd like to go deeper on, because Kathy and I looked at this. This is huge. It is a tool, a generalized tool, like the internet was a generalized layer. AI is a layer on top of the internet, which opens up even more things. And it's exciting to me to be able to engage with you and to recognize, their fears, concerns. If you like certainty, well, you can be certain that we're going to hit an inflection point here with technology that is going to be but also for people.
Yeah, life is going to change. Technology is going to change, even if it's not around AI. One of the things I love to do is actually put up screen share and show people as we're doing, because I think that's really good, but we need specific requests for that. Like, we really need to know specifically what you want to do, because then it's really easy to generate a prompt and show you, oh, this is how it's coming up and this is how we're altering it. And this is where you copy and paste or whatever. But without specifics that will really resonate with you, it's we're kind of guessing, and that's not as
Yeah. I'm even willing to allocate a certain amount of our circle calls to co-creation around and building things that people want to explore. That would be fun and exciting to me as well. So let's let's take a look at where we go with this. And thank you for co-creating, Kathy. I,
Oh, it's my pleasure. I just want to I love to always presence at the end because I think we forget to do this too much. If you showed up today, especially if you were nervous or scared or a little resistant, way to go. Way to turn into your fears, way to look at it, do some tapping and explore, because it's the things that we avoid that really keep us stuck in life and hold us back over time, because it takes a lot of energy to avoid something that is becoming so pervasive. So congratulations. And you can make a new friend, somebody will help you move through life more easily because of your courage today. So way to go. Nice job.
thank you. Thank you all. Until next time.